From America's past are tales so frightening that they must be real. Join me on a journey into the dark mysteries for stories that are terrifying as they are real. History's most deadliest serial killers and victims' grave sites. 10. Ed Gein, the Butcher of Plainfield. Born August 27th, 1906 in Plainfield, Wisconsin, Edward Theodore Gein, better known as Ed Gein, was born to George and Augusta Gein. Gein endured a difficult childhood. His father was an alcoholic, and his mother was verbally abusive towards him. Gein nevertheless idolized her, a fact that apparently concerned his older brother Henry, who occasionally confronted her in Gein's presence. In 1944, Henry died in mysterious circumstances during a fire near the family home in Plainfield. In 1945, Ed Gein's mother died, leaving him virtually a hermit. Gein cordoned off the area of the house that his mother had used most frequently, preserving them as some type of shrine. Ed attracted the attention of the police in 1957 when a hardware store owner named Bernice Woolen would go missing. Gein had been seen with her shortly before her disappearance, and when law enforcement officials visited his farm, they found her body. She had been fatally shot and decapitated. 1957, Gein was unfit for trial and was confined to a psychiatric institution. In 68, however, he was deemed that he could participate in his own defense. Gein was found guilty of the killing of Warden, but was deemed insane at the time of the crimes. He returned to the mental hospital, where he remained until his death in 1984. Henry Lee Lucas, mass murderer, psychopath, convicted of 11 murders, confessed over 500. Henry Lee Lucas was born the youngest of 9 children in a 2-room dirt floor cabin outside of Blacksburg, Virginia. His father, Anderson Lucas, was an often drunk moonshiner who lost his leg by falling asleep on a railroad track. His father died early of pneumonia. His mother, Viola Lucas, was a prostitute. From the moment of birth, she hated Henry and made his life a virtual hell on earth. When she started school in 1943, she sent him to school dressed like a girl. Any pets he adopted was quickly killed, often beaten by his mother. He lost an eye when she gouged it with a knife. One of Viola's live-in lovers, Bernie, taught him bestiality, to rape and torture animals before killing them. Henry's first victim, 17-year-old Laura Burnley, was raped and strangled on March 1951. In June 1954, he was convicted of a series of burglaries around Richmond, Virginia, and gave 6 years in prison. Released in 59, he moved to Michigan. When his mother showed up to demand he returns to Virginia, several days later, he killed and raped the corpse. Convicted of her murder, he was given 20 to 40 years in prison. But in 1960, he was transferred to a state hospital for criminally insane, where he was released in 1970. In 1971, he was convicted of molesting girls and sentenced to 10 years, but he was paroled after 5. The next year, he met and teamed up with Ottis Toole, another serial killer. They became close friends and partners, robbing, raping, and murder as they moved through the states to avoid the police. 1983, Lucas was arrested and in a Texas jail when he confessed to over 500 murders. Police eventually reduced this to 90 kills. March 12th, 2001, at 11 p.m., Lucas was found dead in his prison from a heart failure at 64. He was buried in Captain Joe Bird Cemetery in Huntsville, Texas. 5th, 1947, Ottis Toole was born in Jacksonville, Florida, to an alcoholic father and an abusive mother. Toole was a serial killer, a serial arsonist, and an American drifter. Toole was born into a very disturbed home life. His mother was a Christian extremist. His sister molested him and dressed him in girls' clothing. His grandmother was a Satanist who used him to rob graves of body parts for satanic rituals. Before his father left him, Toole was also forced to perform oral sex for his father's male friends. With an IQ of 75 and a lack of positive influence in his life, Toole seemed sure to head down a dark path. When Toole reached the 9th grade, he dropped out of school and began meeting men at local gay bars. He later told reporters that he knew he was gay at 10. When he was 14, a local salesman asked him to perform oral sex on him. Toole murdered the salesman by running him over with his own car. Toole then began drifting around the United States. In his travels, he met Henry Lee Lucas. The two became best friends and lovers, and ended up going on a murder spree together. On July 27, 1981, Toole kidnapped Adam Walsh from a department store in Florida. Walsh's head was later found, but his body was never recovered. Many years later, Toole confessed to the murder of John Walsh. On September 15th, 1996, in a Florida state prison, Ottis Toole died of cirrhosis at the age of 49. His body went unclaimed and was buried in the Florida State Prison Cemetery. Starkweather was born on November 24th, 1938 in Lincoln, Nebraska, the third child of 7 children of the parents of Guy and Helen Starkweather. As a child, he was bullied for his bow-legged walk and speech impediment. Starkweather left school at the age of 16. Charles Starkweather was inspired by the 1955 James Dean movie Rebel Without a Cause. He tried to imitate the look and style of its star. He also became romantically involved with Caroline Fugate, who was only 13 at the time. Weather left his newspaper hauling job, but the injustice of his poverty, as he saw it, began to consume him, and he was convinced that crime was the only route to financial gain. In the early morning of December 1st, 1957, Starkweather killed Robert Culver. Robert Culver was working at a service station in Lincoln. One night, he refused to sell stuffed animals on credit to Charles Starkweather. Starkweather returned several times during the night to purchase small items, then finally banished a shotgun, forcing Culver to hand over $100. Then drove Culver to a remote area. After Culver was injured during a struggle over the shotgun, Starkweather killed him with a shot to the head. Bert Bob Culver was buried in Beaver Cross Cemetery about 25 miles west of Lincoln, Nebraska. Later, his parents were buried next to him. On January 21st, 1958, Starkweather drove to Folgate's house, where he was denied entry by her mother and father. Following the altercation, he killed both of them, as well as Folgate's 2-year-old half-sister, Betty Gein. Starkweather and Folgate lived in the house for 6 days, with Folgate telling visitors that the rest of the family was bedridden with the flu. But they later fled after other family members grew suspicious. Starkweather drove to a farm of a family friend named August Myers and killed him, and then hitched a ride from Robert Jensen and Carol King, eventually killing them as well and taking their car. They then drove to the suburbs of Lincoln and killed Mr. and Mrs. Ward and their maid, then headed to Washington State, where Starkweather's brother lived. By this point, the National Guard had been notified of the spree killing. Seeking to switch vehicles, Starkweather killed shoe salesman Merle Collins, but had trouble operating the unfamiliar vehicle. Encounters with passers-by drew attention, and a high-speed chase endured, ending after Sheriff Earl Heflin shot out the back window of the vehicle. Charged with multiple counts of murder, Charles Starkweather pled innocent by reason of insanity. He was sentenced to death and executed by electric chair in Lincoln on June 25, 1959. Folgate claimed she was a hostage, but the jury found her guilty. Because she was only 14 years old when she participated in the murder, she received a life sentence. She was paroled in 1976. Thank you for watching. If you liked my video, then please hit the subscribe button and share, and we'll have a new video up every single day.